There,
Hello.
there. And we are live. Hello, everybody. This stream has been brought to you by Operation Rebuild. Have you sent in your letter today? Moving on. Tonight we're going to be discussing new media websites in the wake of GamerGate. We want to, with GamerGate, we've been pretty much attacking the old media websites that have been corrupt and untrustworthy in general. Moment, please. Technical difficulties.
Well, just as a quick note on rebuild, we are dealing with a new demographic here. We're not dealing with the old corrupt journalist group that we were dealing with. We're actually dealing with an entirely new group. So extending a hand to basically say you can come to the table if you wish. If they slap it in our face, then we'll know what to do. But
Absolutely.
first, we have to bring them to the. We have to actually send the invitation to bring them to the table.
Absolutely. And as part of Rebuild, we do need to build up the industry, and part of that is having better avenues for free market of ideas and better news coverage on games and better review coverage on them as well. Tonight we're going to have three different people who are going to discuss three different websites. First one being Darian's project, going by the tentative name Solution 6. Laurel Lieb has a project that she was going to discuss about, and we'll also have Moltar sometime later on the stream to talk about his project. So without further ado, Darian, why don't you explain what Solution 6 is? Darian?
Sorry, a little bit of technical difficulties on my end.
It's all right. Relax. You're good.
Can you hear me okay?
Do you mind if I put the paste bin in the side so that way everyone has it?
Go ahead.
We'll go off
Oh,
of that.
sure, you
We
can-
also link it in the description as well.
Okay. Yeah, there's also the
All right.
paste. Yeah, it's also in the description. Go ahead.
Okay, what would you like me to say? Or describe the project as a whole, or...
Describe the project as a whole, what its goals are, what you've been doing to work on it, and what your plans are for it.
Okay, well, what my project was originally created for was as a rebuttal, more or less, to things I saw that was going on. And I looked at it and I'm like, but this could be done in a different way. So Solution 6, in a sense, is a way of building a game-rated site, but completely user-generated content. The goal of the project is a challenge for me, a personal challenge.
What exactly do you mean by a personal challenge? As far as, do you mean like the coding side, or do you mean like as far as getting it up and running and trying something you haven't tried before?
Right, it is to try something I haven't tried before. It looked like an interesting project to take on. Overall, it has many depths into it. One of the funnest thing I find doing with any website when I'm designing a website is actually figuring out how it's going to work, then actually making it work that I want it to work. So that's the personal enjoyment that I get from it.
Mm-hmm. And with that use in the back end, you said you would be running with a couple of let's see, about total of three different. Let's see if I can get back to that column. It's the law of averages is where it ends with. So okay, so a variation of Bayes's average, binomial proportions, and confidence interval. I'm saying this probably.
Okay, those are three different types of algorithms that can be used when determining the voting behaviorals of how things are voted, period.
So on the front end, how would this
process
look for a user?
How does this work for a user?
Yeah, on the front end side of it.
Okay, so on the front end side of it is you're going to have basically the overall game rating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be different than the way you would upvote, say, a comment or an article. It has to be. You can't use the same exact algorithm. So depending on which part of the site you're looking at, it's going to be using one of the three variants that I described in the project.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to
So
use
for
one of the three. I thought you were going to use a combination of the three, or.
Yeah, it's going to be a combination of the three ultimately, but I was describing the entire project as using a combination of the three.
Mm-hmm.
Not that each section of the site's going to use a combination of the
Mm-hmm.
three.
As most people do wonder and are kind of, they're very suspicious of any particular voting site or rating system because they just don't want it to be gamed or basically taken over where somebody programs a bot to basically run through. What exactly preventative measures have you or are you planning to instill into this website to make sure that that does not happen?
Okay, so first off, everybody will be required to create account when voting. As well, you will only be able to cast one vote on one title a day. I mean, more or less, if you pick a title, you can cast one vote with inside of that title for the actual game ranking itself. As far as the other parts of the site, as far as comments and the articles, again, same kind of principle. You just have to limit the amount of time somebody can actually access it. Plus, it's also going to go through and basically filter through IP as well, because every time you log in, it's like you're leaving a breadcrumb. So that's another measure on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, also you can set on the server side, uh, basically you can detect like all of a sudden, bam, data packets being sent to server. You can kind of like bleed that off and basically, basically it's like trying to protect yourself from a DDoS attack. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can actually do that. So
Yeah.
you would
So.
have those kind of measures in place.
So if you got the site up and running, how exactly would you be the one running it, or would you want to hand it off to someone else to have it run? And or on top of that question, if how would you continue it to be running or funded?
Well, I actually have no interest whatsoever of running a company based upon game ratings, aggregating that data and selling it off or anything like that. I have no interest. Either I could release it publicly to the public, completely open source, and we have master clones of this project, or I could hand it off to a group and let them have it. Excuse me, could you repeat the last part of that question?
If it were to be up and running, how would exactly you fund it? Would you fund it like with some particular ads, or would you want to have it donated?
Well, that's it. As I actually have no actual interest of maintaining this project once it's done, that would be relevant to the person who or group of people that take over the project. But I'm already decided to build certain things inside of the project to allow like ad revenue. Basically, you can add your own little ad revenue stream to it, or you could even accept donations. It really depends on who's actually running this at the end of it.
hmm I saw that you estimated this about 5K. Is that estimate, at least for the base cost, a pretty good estimate on how much this would cost an average client?
Right. The cost that I came up with would be like through one iteration, in other words, about a month's worth of development to get a minimal viable product. I mean, something that's actually launched, people can access and use. It might not be 100% done, but a project like this or any project really is never 100% done. It always evolves and changes depending on what the users want.
hmm And you said it would be about 6 months, but how much work time would you be doing? But would you be devoting to this particular project if you wanted to finish it up?
Now, see, that's a very good question. Work time depends on the amount of developers you have on it, obviously.
hmm
Uh, right now, in a given week, I'm only dedicating maybe somewhere around 18 to 25 hours a week on this. So I'm not actually dedicating that much time to it. I mean, I could probably dedicate more, but so without me pulling out a calculator, so you can just do the math of 6 months times like at an extreme 25 hours a week, and there's your answer.
Yes. Let's see. I'll do the math later, but I'll save that as on the side chat. So 25. And that seems about reasonable as far as, so it would take about 6 months to complete. So it does sound pretty reasonable as far as time span goes. Now, with that as well, let's see if I can break this down even further. With the consumer reviews, is there any customization with the review itself? Is there a way? Would there be a way in which somebody could add a category, say if they wanted to describe or cover specific parts of the game, like graphic quality or anything like that, as
Well,
a specific section?
I was giving that a lot of thought, and I actually looked at some blogging websites, not necessarily game related. I did my homework and looked into it, and while an article itself, in my view, should count as a vote, either positive or negatively, to a game's overall rating, there will be room within inside of that for them to rate their experience. Like if they like the like say for on graphics, did they really like the graphics or didn't like the graphics? I mean, you can do different metrics on that, and you can actually pull up more data on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
I figured that since if that was a prominent feature that was in it, even if they say voted on the game independently and then the rest of it would go into their overall review, it would at least give somebody who was a newcomer more of a chance to get ahead as a more detailed and reliable source of information as possible.
right. So, see, that's one thing about the articles. You got those professional critics that exist. Then you have these individuals that want to be critics, that aspire to be critics. So the system's really designed to where it doesn't really care if you're a professional or a non-professional. Everybody gets the same clout in the system, and basically the users determine who is relevant to their viewpoint.
Yeah. Is there any possible verification system or something you might put into place to allow somebody to know that the person who was talking was them? As in, like, if, say, PewDiePie decided to join the website for whatever reason, would there be any indication that it actually was PewDiePie's account?
Right. Yeah. So yes, there would be a verification system. I don't know exactly how that verification system would work over time, because essentially I can create up an email account and say I'm this, and it reflects the same. There would have to be some other type of way of actually verifying that. I
Well,
believe some websites require you to send in photo ID, for instance.
yeah. Well, on for instance, I guess an easy way, possibly or potentially, to do that would be to have someone from either a Twitter account that they already own or something like that, and use that to sign in on the first sign up. And if additional information is needed, they could put the additional information.
Right. I think to actually get verified on Twitter, you have to send them a picture of your photo ID. So, I mean, if you're already verified, say on Twitter, for instance, then it would be easier to verify that.
Yeah, and for me, for instance, I would just use my Google Plus account, and then it would say linked account. So on the display, basically, I'm linked with my YouTube account.
Right.
And that, I guess, that would be the easiest way to get it done without actually having people hand over IDs and stuff.
Well, I was just saying how verification does take place. So I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine. I mean, I know normally, yes, it would be an ID, but a lot of people already have existing accounts. So, with that given, let's see. Would you be pulling any external information for the site? How would you get essentially games, titles, information on the games, just on a general overall basis? How would you be collecting data for that particular stuff?
Most generally, publication companies provide a small media packet. It
Hmm.
comes with some generic images, description of the game, expected release date. This is information that you can get from publishers themselves. So that's the only real outside information that would be pulled in. And as far as I'm at this point, that's going to be manually inserted by a staff member at some point.
Hmm. Let's see. So but as far as your games list, basically to fill your entire website with different games that exist and currently exist, where would you be pulling the data from, and how would you break these apart in like maybe categories or along those lines?
Well, see, the games list itself will be an internal database that is curated through the process I guess described. How would they be listed? Uh, you would be able to select them through a filter, just like any other kind of such website. You'd be able to select through publisher, genre, release date, and so forth,
Hmm.
and all as well as game title.
Yeah. So let's see.
I have a question.
Sure.
What crowdfunding would be necessary for this project to work, if any?
Right now, there is no need for crowdfunding.
Okay. Um, do
Could
you
you give?
have any? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, could you give us a little backstory on yourself, Darian, just to give us a little bit of perspective of who you are as a, sort of professional standpoint, like sort of an
Okay.
introduction.
Uh, all right. I guess we should have done that at the top of the questioning.
Yeah.
Um, I am what they call a business analyst consultant for information technology based companies. And what they do is they bring me in on projects. I help translate the vision of the project into an actual project, breaking down the different aspects. And I've been called on to actually work on projects themselves, as well as manage projects in this field. I've been doing this for about 9 years professionally. Prior to that, I was in management of several different companies. Um, all in all, I have business school and everything else, I guess picked up because I love the technology, man. What else would you like me to answer about myself?
Go ahead, John. You had another question.
Yes. Sorry to segue from away from that question, but what was the what financial prospects do you have for the website as a business, or do you plan on making this nonprofit, or what are your financial prospects with this project?
I have no financial aspirations for this project. Like I said before, if anything, I'm going to hand it off or just release it, on like GitHub completely for free. Let anybody have it.
Hmm.
I do not want to operate this website myself.
Yeah. What would actually? Here's a good question. What would be your criteria of the type of person you would want to release this to?
Uh, the criteria, it would have to be somebody definitely that is passionate, that is not worried about money, but more concerned about the community and the quality of the content that's being put onto the website itself.
Hmm.
Because honestly, with a site like this, you really want to curate a culture, and you want to make that culture good. You just don't want to, I'm going to throw ads all over this and, try to rake in as much money as most businesses, tend to strive for.
Yeah, you want it to make about the individual experience as opposed to what it is you want to get out of it.
Right.
So if mhm. So if you eventually down the line, if you met the individual, Let's see. Time for one or two more questions after this one. Okay. So after you met the individual, is there anything that you would check upon the person, or any thing you would basically run him through to make sure that he qualified for it?
Essentially, it would be a general basics of getting to know the person. General stuff. Maybe looking into their background a little bit, see what kind of qualifications they had, and really learn about their previous experiences running any kind of project.
Fair enough. So with that being time, the next person on
Um,
our
I, s-
list.
I say we have Laurel speak next, and we can discuss her project. How are you doing tonight, Laurel?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Fantastic.
So, um, the project that I'm actually in works of creation is called Leap Opinion Analysis, and this company is really born out of my disgust with the mass media and also the major polling companies, and it was really born out of the fact that the people are their opinions were being manipulated because of the way language was used within surveys through Pew or Gallup that weren't telling the whole story as to how people felt about certain issues. And you guys will have to forgive me. I come from the political side where I've been looking at doing this in politics for a long time, but I will bring it back to gaming in a second. Everybody uses different words to describe things. If we were to talk about, healthcare is a really good view, like a really good example. Everybody has a positive view about the word healthcare in a way. Like they either think people want healthcare, or they think people should have healthcare. There's really generally a positive view. Pew utilized this in a way where when they did a study about the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, they subbed in the word healthcare for both the title ACA and Obamacare, in addition to any other words that could be utilized to make this. And what that does is it limits the scope of what you're talking about. So if you frame a question as to how do you feel about healthcare, and it could be a positive or negative answer as to how you feel about it, whether in your life or what you think about the concept overall. The study found actually that people ranked that they were harder on the words Obamacare and ACA as opposed to healthcare. So what happened were the media sites and Pew utilized the word healthcare in order to give a positive view of the overall circumstances that are in the United States currently in regards to the debate about healthcare, doctors, Obamacare, the ACA, however you frame that. And that pisses me off. By doing that, they take away the people's right. And so from there was born Leap Opinion Analysis. And this is a company that mines what people say about, in this case, we'll go back to the gaming industry. We are going to look at what people say about a game by using the game and the genres of games in searches on Twitter. When we pull that data back, instead of having one or two people looking at it, we actually turn around and ask a crowd of people utilizing crowdsourcing to rate these statements about a particular game on a 5-point scale. When we do that, we utilize the law of averages in order to give an overall view of what people are saying. We are essentially giving the true opinion of people, no matter what language that they're using, about the concept or idea. Within the gaming industry, we are going to start by applying this to games, giving a score to games, but also, and part of this is actually already built because I've been working on leap opinion analysis for about 1.5 years now. This was really born from my irritation of that and also my studies in marketing analytics at the University of Southampton. And I really love social media for this, but I see a way where we can apply this into the gaming industry and in the future, starting with this piece that we have built already, moving into more comprehensive reviews on games by allowing individuals to write reviews but not rate the games, and then turning around and having a crowd rate what those reviews are telling them. So that's, in a nutshell, overall what my system and my company does. Yeah, there we go.
All right.
So with that being said, exactly what is it that you're hoping to get from these ratings? Are you hoping to get a public opinion about particular games, or are you hoping to get particular public opinion about critics and their reviews?
No, this is strictly about the games. Like, I want to remove people from this, like the personality, the cult of identity, this. I'm sick of hearing about the Kardashians of the world. Yeah, I don't care anymore. This is specifically about the games. And what this is large groups of people writing about the games and having an equal say in what that score is within the games.
So wouldn't it, in a sense, be like the equivalent of a message board or image board of 4chan or 8chan, where there's a certain level of parity where everyone is equal?
Everyone is equal, but also the reviews themselves are never going to be in any type of, well, yeah, it's exactly like 4chan. Like, you know, I theoretically could have upvotes and downvotes on different reviews, but in all honesty, I think that the next progression of leap opinion analysis will be into a blog similar to, I think it's called Twitchy Tweets. I'm going to look this up really quickly. Twitchy utilizes utilizes social media to understand how people are reacting to just all kinds of stuff, like articles or events, politics. I actually have been on there a couple of times for politics. And what it does is it actually kind of just lays out, it says, here's the story, or here's the game in your guys' cases, and then here's a sampling of what people are saying about it, positive and negative. And I really want to kind of do something to that effect, because I don't think one person's opinion should override another's, because everybody's going to be looking for different things. Everybody's going to care about different things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how are you going to value these opinions? Are you going to basically, when you get this data and collect it, how are you going to have the sorting system basically give you an accurate perception of what people are telling you?
It's simply just the law of averages that's going to average out the score from all of the, and also within that.
Well, actually, let's cover how is it exactly that one person's opinion of this would be given a score, quote unquote.
Their score. What will happen is, so if you write a tweet on, what's your favorite game? I need a game.
Well, let's say I have, currently I have Shadow of Mordor or
Okay.
Assassin's Creed.
So you tweet something out, oh my gosh, this level in Shadows of Mordor is amazing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that so far.
Okay. That tweet, once we pull that, as we're looking at Shadows of Mordor, that tweet goes out to a crowd of people who then rate your opinion on a positive or negative scale.
Hmm.
Your
So, do
opinion
you
will
like a
have a
plus?
score
Hmm.
based on that.
What did it?
What happened to?
Yeah, it
It
dropped.
seems that Laurel has dropped off. Let me see if I can get back in touch with her. Let me see. I
Yeah,
just
she's on a phone, so she's also on the road, so that's probably the reason she dropped off. It's not a technical issue on our end.
Yeah.
all right.
Just for
In that case, I say that we will get back with Laurel. In the meantime, to prevent dead air, we will move on to discuss Start Button with Dry Bones and I'm sorry, Moltar or
Moltar.
thank you.
Moltar.
Okay.
Oh,
It
wait.
is Moltar.
Oh,
Well, that was
There's
awkward.
Laurel.
About to segue into another segment, but Laurel's back, so we can resume with that one. Sorry
Oh
for the
my
technical difficulties,
God.
folks.
I have no idea how long I was talking.
So, okay.
Where was it?
You were where you left off as this. There would be a third party who would be giving you a sort of rating, but were you to be more specific? Are you talking about like on a scale of 1 to 100, or no? I mean like sort of
It's a
that kind
five
of
point.
thing.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a 5-point scale. It's a 5-point Likert scale, positive to strongly negative.
Okay.
That's it. It's simple.
Hmm. And exactly what would this be used for? What is the economical and business plan associated with this? What are you hoping to help with the industry and that kind of stuff?
Well, it gives that overall rating. I mean, look at some of the problems and scandals that have been going on in the games, and look at. Am I still here?
Yes, yes.
yes.
Okay. My
Go on.
internet's really bad. I'm sorry. I keep getting flashes of things on the screen.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
There's a place for solo critics, but also if you look at some of the problems that we've had right now with like Gone Home, where this is a game that not everybody resonated with, but yet the score on it is really, really high. Like what I am doing is giving that score from that opinion of everybody instead of just the opinion of the few.
So with this, are you hoping to basically give the gaming industry an overall view of what it is the public perceives their games?
Yeah, exactly. It's twofold because I'm also planning on giving consumers an overall view of the same thing so that they can choose games on things that are important to them versus it's just another tool for them to use when they're looking to buy a game. Some people actually care more about the technical stuff and really need somebody to write all of that out. Not a lot of people, some people don't. They just need honest opinion from a group of people on whether they should try the game or not.
What is your projections on the benefits of this for a company if they say were to adopt your model, and what is the overall accuracy and predictive capability of this model?
The latter question, I'll say that I don't have an answer, or I don't have the numbers for quite yet, as I'm still running those tests. I have some preliminary ones that I ran to make sure that that it wasn't going to get skewed one way or the other.
Well, I would recommend that you
That is something I'm currently in the process of beginning stages on by pulling the data on specific keywords and topics. So right now that's what I'm doing to get that. The former, which would be going back to the business side of this, is a business wants to know what their people want to buy. It doesn't really care about the politics necessarily, and that's not for every business, as we have seen recently. But for a lot of businesses, if it hurts their business, they don't really want to be involved in it. And this is an accurate sample and view of what people are thinking, rated by what other people think. So it really removes any bias, any bias out of the process of the rating system. So we don't have 1 or 2 or 20 analysts looking through this. We have, at some point, we plan on having, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who are looking at these things. So it's really by the people, for the people. Like, it's analysis so that you know whether the product is good or bad, whether how people feel about the idea. It's really just that overall analysis. And then from there, or even before there, maybe they'll look at technical reviews and they'll look at other things, and eventually leave opinion analysis will expand into that. But right now, the real goal is to get the people into something where they can trust it. And what better to trust than a system that is randomly pulling stuff from the internet based on keywords and then sending it to other people to find out how they feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have Emil posed a question from the chat.
Sure.
What's the economic model for the site? It's like, how is it going to be self-sustaining in terms of making money so that it can keep running itself?
That will be that I'm kicking around different ideas myself on. This, by no mistake, I'm going to let you guys know this is a business. This is something that I've been working towards building most of my adult life.
It sounds like you have.
Business.
It sounds like you'd have better bet selling it to the corporate world versus an average user, as far as giving it to them and then helping them see the front end as far as a application side of it. As in, someone can get an application that helps them determine what would be a good game for their fit.
That's completely possible. Yeah. And that's an avenue that I could take, but why not do both?
I mean, that's kind of what I was suggesting, is both.
Well, yeah, no. Like, there are avenues. As a matter of fact, Leave Opinion Analysis was originally set up with that model. It was a subscription site for predominantly media companies and political campaigns. Mm-hmm. Was the original goal of this site. Because I am inspired by what GamerGate is doing, and I am inspired by this. If I could start to turn it into a games rating site to kind of give back to the community and fund it a little differently in the interim at the beginning to get it built to the point where I have enough of that data to sell it to subscribers, that is a possibility. Advertising is a possibility. Those things haven't been totally worked out at this moment, and in the future, that will be coming down the pipeline relatively soon because I have a good chunk of this software already built. But both, to me, it's not mutually exclusive. I'd like to do both, but I'd like to do it in a way where you're not dealing with just a few people, looking at the data or picking and choosing based on ideology. You're looking at a vast amount of people making that independent decision by themselves.
Mm-hmm. I will say, based on what you've provided, it is a good amount of information. Unfortunately, because it still are in the beginning stages, my opinion of this would be until we have a predictive model showing whether or not it's very accurate or whether or not it proposes very beneficial stuff, I would withhold my money. So I'm up for now, as the Shark Tanks would say. But yeah, keep working on it. Once you get your product in full testing, I would like to take a look at it, and I would actually also suggest someone like Darian help take a look at it to make sure that it is coming with beneficial results, or whatever your team is doing, so that way we can have an overall view of how good it is on, for the gaming side. As well as we do have a lot of devs who would find that very useful of a tool to know how to sell the most games to the most demographic, which is kind of what they're all aiming for. All right, so with that, we will leave that as the last segment of Your Turn, Laurel. So with that, I think we will turn to Moltar and Dry.
Dry bones.
Dry bones.
Hello.
So, hello, Dry. I've actually been looking through your website, and I've got to say, there's a good amount of information, but there is quite a bit of stuff I would have questions for. But I would like you to introduce yourself, what it is you particularly have, basically give me a professional introduction.
Okay, first off, let me just say to people who don't know, I do speak a little funny. My R's sound like W's, so please don't bully. And
I never dream of it.
oh, thank you. Let's see. And with me today is Martyr, who is one of the editors at GamerGate.me. He's one of the people that's helping, kind of design the system that we're going to be working on for StartButton.net. I mean, there's multiple parts, but what he's going to be specifically working on is like the policy stuff and how we're going to be designing how the system works. And he can introduce himself if he wants to.
Yeah, sure. I've been editing GamerGate.me, and that's about it. Just sorting out ethics policies and so on and so forth, getting in writers, editing stuff, trying to find good content among GamerGate, and I've been sort of dragged into this whole StartButton.me thing. That's about it. That's all I'm going to disclose in terms of my identity. I don't really want to go into professional background, academic background, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so is there any other things you want to describe in terms of the current project you're working on? This StartButton.net?
Yeah, of course. I mean, currently, right now, we're very much in the theory crafting stage. There are tons of details that we have yet to agree upon, and but essentially what we're doing is we're doing a kind of holy triumvirate. We're aiming for it, where we're going to build a site where users review games, users review critic reviews of games, and users review the critics themselves, or in journalists' case, journalists, and going all the way up to journalism sites. And among that review, that's basically using the data mined from this, we're going to create weight. So theoretically speaking, a user that would have reviews of a higher quality would have more weight than reviews from a user that are deemed to be lower quality. Likewise, a journalist that is deemed to be... can you guys hear me? Because I think I'm cutting off.
Yeah, I'm hearing you just fine.
Okay, all right. Likewise, a journalist that would be received as having high-quality reviews or low-quality reviews or clickbaity reviews or being exposed as having ethical malpractice or being exposed to something like Game Journal Pros, though all of these types of things would be factored into the weight that the site would ascribe to the reviews.
Let me build on that a bit. The weight for a journalist or a blogger and a user would be different, because the journalist would be, the user's reviews would be kind of community voted upon. So like the more reviews that the user does, and based on the votes that they receive, their weight increases or decreases. For future reviews. Whereas the journalist is more based on what's currently happening with them and their news group.
Maltar, for the time being, could you mute yourself?
Yeah, sorry, I just realized.
Yeah. So are you there, Dre?
Yes.
Dre Williams? Okay, go ahead and continue if you wish.
Um, do you have specific questions about the
Oh
site?
yes, I actually do. Is it possible that when you're talking about, say, the weight, quote unquote, of a journalist and stuff like that, when you talk about basically that they'd have less weight, wouldn't it be simpler to simply say give them marks on their actual profile or when they make a review? On that review, you can basically go, well, he has the X number of reports based from consumers, or if it's like he did something ethical that were to be attached, like a Carfax.com sort of report, or on like the Better Business Bureau, they have different reports that you can see on this specific person in profile, as well as as an alternative or possible combination, there can be sort of like how the Food Health Association gives you like an A or a B or C or D based on how clean you keep your place.
Are you also talking about kind of like if you go to like Google Stocks, when something happens in the news, you can see that with like a visual
Yeah,
representation?
over time, something similar to that.
Well, we never thought about having the visible weight, but Marta, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Um, in the difference between, I really like the whole dichotomy that we have on the Chan culture between anonymity of feedback and named feedback, that being from the journalists. So one of the ideas that I really, really like is having forced anonymity uh, on the user feedback. And that prevents the situation where you have like a Reddit scenario where you have curator, you have like a curator type of situation with the users where certain users will get bumped to the top always because they're popular, they're more familiar, and they have an overall higher karma score, and that they're always going to drown out the users who are new, and it's going to create barriers to entry for people who want to register new accounts to the site, for people who want to participate, and so on and so forth. I really, really like the idea of the reviews by themselves. The words of the reviewing, the wording of the reviews by themselves taken for their own merit, and so the way that I, at this stage in the theory crafting, because again, which is still extremely early days for Start Button, where the weighted score, um, each user or each critic or each site will have in accordance a weight score, and that will determine how much their favorable or unfavorable reviews of a game are weighted into the final determination. And for the users, that weight score will only be visible to them. And the reviews themselves will be, they will have, like, you will need to have a review, you will need to have an account to contribute a review to the site. But the weight of your reviews will only be um, known to you, whereas the journalists, that will be publicly known, and the weight of a review from a journalist will be determined by a mix of factors. And again, these are getting into details that we haven't fully out. Like, what we're trying for is essentially really, really ambitious, and this is going to be an extremely complicated algorithm to figure out, and we haven't even agreed upon all of the variables within that algorithm that we're going to be taking into account and things that we're not going to be taking into account. For instance, in the reviews themselves, I'm very much of the opinion that reviews should just be counted as being favorable or unfavorable. And I am not I'm not the type of person who likes trying to break down games into arbitrary categories of quality, like things like graphics, things like gameplay, things like story, because I don't think, if users want to have a service like Metacritic where they can just search for a game, hit enter, and they'll have glanceable, aggregated uh, scores for things like the game itself, for things like gameplay, for things like graphics, whatever. Like they can go to another site for that. I really like the idea of, as has been said before, community building, where the priority will be on the actual content of the reviews themselves.
How would you prevent from? Is it going to be a thumbs up, thumbs down type of towards the reviews, or are they going to have no way of giving an agreement or anything like that to the reviews? How would you, in terms of currently, what do you see as the rating system for either the games or the critic reviews?
Well, for the user, again, this is going to be different for the differently determined between the user reviews and the critic reviews. From the user reviews, we don't want it to be just based upon downvotes and upvotes, because that's partially solved by the forced anonymity, but you're going to get into a situation where you have things like brigading, so you're going to have users organizing privately to vote negative reviews down on their favorite games, or vote positive reviews down on their hated games, or whatever. So yes, you're going to have kind of like an Amazon system, where users can say, yes, this review is helpful to me, or this review is not helpful to me. Essentially, that's the same thing as Reddit, but that's not going to be again, ultimately, the weight of the review given by a user in a game is determined by multiple things. It's going to be determined by the individual amount of downvotes or upvotes that individual review has received. It's going to be determined by things like the number of reviews that person has received, that person has contributed to the site, which have been overall favorably received, so that have received more downvotes than upvotes, for instance. Hang on a sec. I actually need to check my notes for this, because we have notes.
Yeah, go ahead and check your notes. I'll just make my
I have a
comment.
quick question on that note.
Sure, go ahead.
Will there be a sense of competition for favorable reviews versus unfavorable ones? Like, will these algorithms be visible, so that way people can see how much favorability this person has within the community, or will that be hidden to prevent that sort of thing?
Yeah, when I say forced anonymity, the weight of your reviews, which is basically your user score, that's on the user side, that's only going to be visible to the user. So there won't be competition in that regard. Again, like we're trying to mimic the culture of V, basically, as close as we can, because that's kind of like, if we can do that while simultaneously giving the users power en masse to deter, because potentially you're going to get into a situation where, depending on how critic scores are met, you're going to get into a position where some users are going to have user-weighted, the scores of their weight of their user scores are going to be higher than the publicly visible scores of some journalists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be interesting to see. But again, that's for personal reflection.
Yeah.
I don't really think that that should be something that users should compete for one another in, because then if people want to do, I don't like this idea of having users rise to the top in order to create celebrity users. I'm really averse to that. If users want to be YouTubers, or if they want to be bloggers, or if they want to go work for a journalism site, they can go and do that. They can fire off their CVs and get a job, or they can start up a YouTube account and make videos. I have no problem with that. But if you just want to, contribute as a user, as a hobby, then I don't see why you should not, or why you should be forced to compete with other users, because you're inevitably going to end up in this kind of like karma score circle jerk where people are going to be afraid to give negative reviews on games which are controversially received or games which are positively received. Yeah, that's the kind of situation that we're trying to avoid.
Can
Well,
add in a
I would
little
say.
something?
Sorry, go ahead.
Just really quick. I mean, when people are discussing games or stuff like that on V, because of the the anonymous nature of it, everyone sees everyone as equal until they read the content. So no one's judging anyone based off of visuals, what they know about them previously, history, or anything like that. So I always like the idea of the anonymous nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I may comment on this, I am on Rooster Teeth right now, and I have like a karma level, which is gaining karma based on my actions, and I lose karma based on certain actions. But when you say weight of someone's review, are you talking about in the same way based on the value of that review would give it a certain weight, just like the value of, say, materials like gold and silver and stuff like that?
Which review? Because there's multiple sections of that.
Let me answer, because I think I know what he means. All right, so basically what we're doing, when a user gives a review, it's going to be either to a game. It's either going to be favorable or unfavorable. Then what the weight of their review? Sorry.
If you need me restated, I can restate it.
No, it's totally fine. I'm just mincing my words a little bit. Let's say, like, you like the game, so there's a game that you review favorably. Now, disregarding the contents of the review, disregarding on how favorably your review is received by the community, your user account will have an attributed score, and that score will determine the weight that your favorable or unfavorable review of the game is determined by the final algorithm, which will give a glanceable score to the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is. That's all I mean by the rating of the game. It's because we're just going to do favorable or unfavorable in terms of how users can give reviews, and then the reviews themselves would be written by the user, so you'll have like a rationale or justification, or if they really want to, they can go full like essay, they can write as much as they want, and the weight of it is simply put how much their favorable or unfavorable review of the game, how much it matters in relation to everyone else's review of that game.
Mm-hmm. Were these the weight, quote unquote, with this particular, say, one game review not carry over to, say, another game review, as in these would be separate and counted separately, so that way you would end up with impartial sort of ratings or scores.
Okay. It would carry over. Every person, every user will have an account. And the more reviews they have in their personal portfolio, the more accurate their scoring will become based on their overall consistency, how their reviews are received, and so on and so forth. But when a user will go to a game website, so let's say a user goes to like Shadow of Mordor page or whatever, the reviews themselves, what you're talking about is exposure, I think, right?
Sort of, and so you're gonna carry. It sounds a lot like how karma works on Rooster Teeth, but also with sort of a weight measured based on the value that people place on you, as opposed to something I do myself, but the value that people place on you basically carries onward to when I make another review, because I have established, say, a line of credit with the public view, is what it sounds like you're getting at, that I would in turn have that line of credit to take with me onto my next review, and so on and so forth, and continue storing, say, that line of credit, unless I screw up, and in turn that line of credit would be either deducted or something along that line.
Yeah, but that line of credit would never be visible to the community.
Which is perfectly fine.
So every review that you write would start off afresh in terms of the relations that it has with the other reviews for that game. So if you want to go to one game, the default sorting of reviews would be by the best by the best written first, like so-called best in quotation marks, because really what it would be is the most upvoted. Now, there would also be options for other methods of sorting, such as worst received sorting and most controversially received sorting, so in terms of the number of upvotes or downvotes that a rating would receive. But if you, let's say you write a review for one game, and it's like, and you get 100 upvotes and 0 downvotes, that is going to have no effect on how your next review is exposed in the community.
I think that
all it's going to affect is what your weight is for your next vote. But other users are not going to be able to receive that. So the reviews themselves are going to be interpreted on a case-by-case basis, because we have this forced anonymity thing.
All right. With that, it is actually time. So it is time for roundtable discussion. Though there is one question I didn't ask, but I will let other people go as far as questions and stuff like that. The only question that I didn't get to, which was how do you prevent, like, basically spam botting or stuff like that? The countermeasures. What countermeasures would you potentially see? And I know you're still in the development stages of it, but yeah, I will say that unless we get to it.
Well, I think that's just the question you can pose to everyone. It's how would you even know? I know Darian kind of touched up on it.
Yeah, actually, that would be a good question to both Starbutton and Laurel, as in that potential pool that she draws from could have that problem as far as just random bots saying, "Oh, this game was good. This game was awesome. This game was great."
My system has a thing built into that for spam, which is just kind of an extra button to the side. Everybody knows what spam looks like. This isn't that hard. And based on the ratio of spam tweets to rated tweets is, and that ratio, I can't quite remember what that ratio is off the top of my head. It's in my notes. That ratio, like once it hits that ratio, like it'll come to a person, and the person will scroll through, and if it's spam, it's spam. If it's not, it's not. It gets thrown back in, and that's the end of it. In the future, as technology progresses, it will get easier and easier to be able to see those things, and that's just kind of the accruement of data from, well, what words show up more often in tweets that tend to be spam. Let's omit those words, or maybe there's a specific hashtag if you're getting spammed by some crazy cheesy marketing company. Like we all could prove that the Stop Gamergate 2014 was a marketing bot. That wasn't that hard to see. So once we saw that, you would include that in, and maybe even include that in a subgroup to see if it's all the same tweets or what other people are saying on that thread. It's a dynamic system. It's the point is it's a dynamic system that as it grows and gets better, it will, build upon itself. That's what this is.
I would say the best method of that is once you establish that account is basically a spam account or something that most likely posts spam and stuff like that, that you could put it in sort of a watch or sort of a rejection list. That way you don't have to be bothered with its tweets anymore, because it is, and we're talking about actual legitimate spam accounts.
Yeah, no, this is what I'm saying. We're not going to, this isn't about censoring anybody. If there turns out that because we're so, if you've seen the beautiful graphic done that was in Polygon that I saw that shows the spear of Gamergate and the positive and negative, but they're really two spears that are apart. As time moves on, we can include those SJW words in order to see what those conversations are, and dynamically including them in a larger conversation. This is an inclusive system. This is, as more information arises, it continues to grow. There's never going to be some set list of standard that everything has to hold to, because that denies what human nature already is, and that's to grow and learn from itself. So it's not set up. It will eventually not be able, it will eventually cover that.
Could we talk about our spam method?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Wait, hold on a second. Sorry, someone's messaging me. Okay.
That's all right.
So our idea of preventing spam would be to have an email activation, just like a normal website would have. And then for the first time that they are interacting with the website and posting content, they are presented with a pretty challenging capture. I mean, not too hard, but probably not one of those text captures. And once they pass that captcha, then they're kind of tagged as a human being, user, and not as a bot, or a potential spam bot.
Yeah.
Then there's also should be a spam report function, and have a kind of a threshold. If that kind of gets above, an automatic threshold, and then that kind of bumps them into a spam category.
So they will be set to limitations on what they can do. Take me, for instance. I actually am able to push out, say, a couple dozen reviews every so often. What would be your goal limitation on that?
I'm not thinking about limitations on the how many reviews they can do.
More on the bot side.
We're talking about like spam bots and people. Most of the automatic systems that kind of just kind of cause just pure spam. Now the spam button would be what would be the tool against people that do spam reviews, but if they're actual legitimate reviews, I mean, who's to prevent them from actually releasing those reviews? And we're not really limiting accounts based on they're not they have to be activated, and then they have to pass a captcha once. And it's not like they can't, do it again. It's not like they fail and they have limited access.
I
So
mean,
it's go ahead.
yeah, basically, like when if for instance, like the situation was mentioned where you have, this game was good. One sentence reviews with a favorable rating. If you're in that situation, the users will report it as spam, and if we get into a situation where uh, we're getting like a lot of spam boats from a specific IP range, then of course, you can do there are tons of things that you can do in relation to that. But when I'm talking about forced anonymity, it's not like it's not like people are going to review games without creating an account. They're still going to have an account. They're only going to be able to make one review per game. And beyond that, if they want to write one-sentence reviews, they're going to find their account very, very quickly into the basically spam bin, where they will have a weight of 0. In which case, they can write all the spam reviews they want. Their reviews will have 0 impact on the overall score of the game.
It sounds like a pretty good methodology as far as going. Is there a process to keep to like? For me, like in YouTube, you're able to do a counter notice, and I'm pretty sure if someone's starting to do like a counter notice process, they exist most of the time. But would there be a counter notice process?
I'm not familiar with YouTube. What is a counter notice process?
Oh, you get a notice basically if in your instance you'd be saying, oh, you're a spam bot, and somebody would get a notice that, oh, I'm a spam bot, and then I could basically either email or with the YouTube, you just basically do I would like to actually counter this, and you basically comment, well, this is why I wrote this review or whatever. Basically, you give a little description of what it is, why you don't believe you qualified for the flagging or spam bot qualification.
Sure, I mean these are kind of like very specific details that we haven't really thought of. I mean, spam, you don't really want to plan. I mean that's in the later stages basically. But yeah, well, ultimately I don't really like this whole idea of shadow banning where users can end up with a score of 0 and not know about it simply because other users have flagged them with spam. I don't like the idea of that. Obviously, if if we're getting into a point where uh, reviews are being brigaded, so we have a situation where people are organizing to flag as spam positive or negative reviews for a game, then this obviously, like there are going to be countermeasures for that on behalf of the admins. I mean, it depends on how the user base grows. If obviously when we're starting out, we're going to have a small user base, so accounts that get flagged as spam accounts are going to be few enough that it's going to be able to be dealt with by the moderators on a case-by-case basis. And as the number of these types of situations grow, I think we'll be able to figure out some kind of more automated process, like with a standardization of appeals and so on and so forth. But for now, that's not really something that we're thinking about.
Okay, I got a question for both Laurel and the team of Starbutton.net. What is your plans for encouraging community discussion, if any, in addition to the reviews? For instance, you do have the community-driven reviews that are on the site, but will there also be a place where people can talk about different aspects of different games they like, different types of gaming news, etc., so on and so forth?
For leave opinion analysis, yeah, completely, because that stuff's also really important. But that stuff also has to be labeled as such. So it's definitely going to be like in a, essentially an opinion section. And, eventually when we do build a large enough community that it can be that it can continue to grow, like that it will like hit that sweet spot where it continues to grow, we will start doing game reviews on the site instead of just exclusively pulling from Twitter. And also looking at a couple of other avenues that I want to pursue but don't really want to talk about yet, as to getting a little bit more in-depth review, and then also allowing others to read those reviews and see what other people are saying. That's phase 2. We're still in phase 1. And phase 1's been a really long process to build, but it's nearly complete, and that's just wanting to start putting the community on the right track just within this instance. And then, other things are everything else, like it's like the star what? What was the name?
Star button?
Star button. I'm sorry. I kept thinking Stardock for some reason, but I knew that wasn't right. Like them, this is a dynamic thing that's going to continue to grow. They're still in planning phases, and reality is you never get out of planning phases, because as you start developing one thing, something else is going to come around the corner that you're going to be like, ooh, that will be great to do next. Geolocating, and there's so many other avenues of ways to kind of allow people to either look at reviews or how businesses look at reviews, that it's going to be this dynamic thing that continues to grow.
So the next person would be Starbutton, I guess was what the question.
Martar once told me that he wanted to answer this question, so I'm going to let him go ahead.
Sure. Well, first off, I prefer to talk about my own sites rather than other people's sites. But regarding the community question, I don't really want to compete with places like V or Reddit. So beyond the discussion of the games themselves by means of reviews or discussions of the game reviews by journalists, no, I don't really want to make a forum. I don't really want to make an image board or a subreddit or something like that. I'd rather let the existing communities I'd rather let the communities that already exist, and try to provide a service that is harmonious to that instead of competing with that.
Can I add a little bit to it?
Sure, go ahead.
I think that with when you come to like forums with these gaming news sites or review sites, a lot of bias can kind of firm with that. And the communities kind of separate in a way. So, sometimes I don't like the way that the GameSpot or the IGN firms kind of come about. They kind of form their own clique, and I just don't want to support that kind of that nature. Reddit and V already provide community discussions that are better supportive of that.
Yeah, I do have a question, and this is for everyone here. And as far as if you were to have ads associated with your product, and it could be on the website or anything like that. And I know I read your guys' post, and as well as Darian, opposition to keeping it going. But if you were to pick ads, what ads would you essentially pick for your website? Like sort of a sort of genre. Would you make it so that it was user driven, or basically like Google Ads, where it's based on what you prefer to see as ads? And is there any sort of ads you would say that these cannot go on the site for various reasons, that they should not go on the site? Maybe ethical reasons, or maybe you don't want to seem to have a bias towards anything in particular. And this question is to everyone, so.
Sure. I mean, when you're talking about, if you go to a game review site and you got a half-page spread ad of a game, which is marketing, taking up half the screen compared to the review of the game, which is negative, this presents a dilemma for the reader. And yeah, there are big ethical considerations to having game reviews or to present it alongside game marketing. And yeah, that's definitely going to be something that we consider. We run GamerGate.me. We don't have ads on that site. So far, all of our involvement in GamerGate has been altruistic. We take donations for the site, but those are so low that they own, they aren't even covering server costs at this point. So I mean, Drybones runs the server and he's operating at a loss. We exist at this point to promote charity. So the monetization of projects that haven't even started yet, this is not on our list of priorities for determining. We are not sitting around wondering how we're going to get rich.
No, that's not necessarily the nature of the question. It's more of if you had to pick ads. This is a necessity. Basically, you had to pick ads. How would you go about picking ads? It's more of a. The nature of the question is sort of different in getting to know you as individuals.
Mm-hmm. Martyr kind of picked at the ethical part of it, of having those kind of hold on, having like ads on a review page. I always think about it as a kind of like an annoyance kind of thing. So if we were to have ads on the site to help support the servers, I would try to pick as unintrusive ads as possible.
He's not talking about that. He's talking about whether you'd have game ads on a game site.
Or what type of would you aim it towards, say, like technological ads, or would you aim it towards stuff unrelated to games in general?
Yeah. Well,
let me answer this. Let me answer because we aren't disclosing this isn't us putting all of our cards on the table. We have some plans in relation to how we are going to deal with critic scores, which would present a clear conflict of interest if we were taking money directly from game publishers. So I think it depends ultimately how we go about with the development of features, which features we choose to include from the ones that we have planned, which ones we choose not to go with. But at this moment, all I'm going to say is yes, I can definitely see the conflict of interest between presenting a site focused on game reviews, which is simultaneously running ads and taking money from game makers.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of go more towards your question, I guess I was kind of going a little off topic in there. I didn't know what the specifics of it were. But yeah, in terms of topic, tech and automobiles and stuff that isn't related to the games would be a preferable stance in terms of ads. Now I'm not very familiar with advertising. Google Ads and AdSense typically go off base of what is that
Google
person.
search and stuff like that.
Google search. So if you're going to a gaming site, you're going to see gaming ads. I think there's a way to curate that so that it's not it doesn't show those kind of things, even though that's what it's related to. We would probably have to go with a different kind of network or find a way to have other companies do direct advertising with us, and that's not something we're thinking about right now for ads. So we don't have anything to say on how we would choose those people and in what systems we would use.
I'll give my reasons for why I asked it this particular way, but go ahead and go Darian and then Lauren.
Darian, I believe, is in absentia at the moment. I'm sure he will get back.
Yeah. Then go ahead and go, Lauren.
Laura.
Can you ask the question again?
So you said you would potentially add this as a app someone could use to pick basically customize what they would most likely pick as far as games or give them suggestions games. Would you potentially add with that if you had to pick an ads to place on that application? How would you go about ads, and is there a way you would choose basically if you basically have freedom of choice with the ads, but is there ones that you would choose not to put on there? Maybe it's due to conflict of interest, maybe it's not associated with it, or may look as favoritism.
Well, that's assuming that I go the ad route, which
This
to be
is
honest, I'm
this is
not.
a hypothetical, so it's
No,
assuming you're
totally. I
going.
totally get the hypothetical of it. But that's just assuming that I go the ad route. I really actually prefer the idea of doing the subscription route to businesses because for me it seems that that is the direction that would have the best social impact because if I had a subscription service with the businesses that also included access to keys that I could randomly distribute to our users, like that would be just another data point
Yeah.
or something to that extent. So that is a better route to me in this. If I do go the advertising route, how would I do that? If I do go the advertising route, it would be included with like the opinion pages, essentially.
So you'd advertise things
Predominantly,
like.
particularly on, I don't want advertisements on any of the user interface that has to do with either writing the reviews or rating the reviews. There won't be any advertising on that. That is strictly a place for people to go and post their opinion or help or rate the opinion of others. That's what that is. So there's not going to be any advertising on that. That has nothing to do with selling anything.
Yeah.
Those places won't. There could be avenues of advertising revenue in that case. If it's more geared towards the data analysis side, it will not have, necessarily games on it. It might have tech stuff on it. It might have other things. There will be places where games will be banned. Because, you don't want to have an advertisement for like, Shadows of Mordor when it's like competitive, when you're like writing, like when it's like a data, like a critique of, like it's a data analysis, like insight to like the technical features and stuff of the game. Like it's, or, you don't want that. So that's a possibility. And then in the opinion side, yeah, let them have games there too. Like if it's a favorable like opinion on the game, like why can't they advertise on that page? If it's about that specific game. And these are all things that are easy to find with like utilizing like the right metrics and like a combination of people and computer technology. Like this isn't that hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like a symbiotic relationship between both worlds in order to just kind of allow as much freedom for those, make it a way that people can run it rather than it being run with some specific goal in mind. Like just let the people run it and do the cleaning, and then their analysis is interpreted like it's supposed to be. And it's not, it's right there, it's a black and white, it's either in a number or a star system or something. So that's pretty much it. That's what will happen with any advertising if it happens. And then
Yeah. And most apps put it at the front page, but that's fine.
well,
I
it's
had a
not
question.
necessarily with the app part. It's not necessarily an app. Like the
Yeah,
app,
no, that's fine.
the app is more and more becoming what the website is. So essentially, it would just need to be like the correctly formatable, website. And so, if I go that route, like the apps just doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead and ask your question, John.
Okay, two things. First, Robin, welcome to the stream. I know you're absent for the first hour or so.
Oh, it's Maggie wanted to watch a bit of House of Cards, so
No, that's fine.
first things first, isn't it?
As
All right,
always.
and now for the question for everyone, what sort of content that other than that's legal would you not want on your website? For instance, if people want to start posting post-op lewds on your website, would this necessarily be a problem for you, or would you want some way to curate or moderate the content for language, images, etc.?
Did you say lewds?
Is that a question to me?
Well, it depends. Are you working on a secret project we don't know about?
Well, you do realise that carbon-based gaming is in cahoots with Mercedes Carrera. So you can imagine
Scandalous.
certain lewdiness coming out from it. We're doing a Twitch stream with her on Fridays at the moment, where it's basically called carbon-based sex.
All right, back on topic though. Now, basically, my question is,
it's where I stand, you know.
Well,
I mean,
the
I can
question
answer
is,
that quickly because my answer is relatively short. The review process is by derived from the public. So if I'm reviewing the games, it's about the games. Like if this site is about the games, it's about the games. It might branch out into other places. It might go into a more mainstream topic. It might go into movies or, television shows or something like that. Like at some point, I mean, and people could start tweeting this at me, but at some point, if people want me to start rating porn, there is a distinct possibility that I will go into rating porn.
well, you said it's a gaming website. Would there be porn games? I guess would be the appropriate question for that.
Are they games?
They are legitimate games.
They're legitimate games. Then they're games, and they get rated, and there will be a genre of porn games. And if people want to go and rate those games and tell them how they played, that is their business. Not
Hells yeah!
I actually don't mind that.
It's not. It does. This isn't about censoring any. Like obviously, we're not going to have any illegal topics on there. There's going to be, there are societal standards overall that I would like to keep to my site. But like, if there are legitimate porn games out there that are legitimate that people play, like that will be a genre that will be rated. I mean, I just essentially need a list of genres, and I'll start pulling out like game titles from left and right. That's
I'm
it.
sure I could compile your list, but a more serious note, would there be curse word prohibited?
No.
Which means that if they try to type in a curse word, it'd be like nope, or change it.
Here's the thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Here's the thing about that just irritates the crap out of me. That is just like it's just one step towards limiting what people say. Oh, that's a bad word. Well, I mean, think about all of the words that people think are bad words. Like, there are words I will not say. There are words that will just never come out of my mouth. But, like, those are my standards for myself and not other people's standards. So, no. Like, if you want, I mean, to be perfectly honest, the crowd might not find find that tweet important, and it'll be discarded. Like, it's not, who cares? Say whatever the heck you want. And maybe I'll have a switch if somebody wants it to be PG-13 because their 15-year-old is learning about data analysis. Fine, but it's not a necessary thing. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, if somebody wants to use like profanity in their review of something, whatever, just do it. Have a blast. I don't care.
Yep. What does everyone else think about controlling content on their site? What would be considered acceptable, unacceptable, or any filters?
Well, I pretty much agree exactly with what Laurel just said. I mean, anyone who thinks that swear words should be censored from reviews. I don't think they've read a lot of reviews from our friends over in gaming journalism because a lot of them have pretty potty mouths. But on the topic, and again with like censoring content itself, like do you want to allow porn games onto the site?
May I may I sort of like say, guys, that if you could imagine the demographics that you're talking about in general, most people when they come to buying games are either late teens to sort of mid to late 20s. If you could imagine the sort of content that these people are interested in, it's going to be along those sort of lines.
Yeah,
You
pretty
know.
much.
I mean, if the porn industry for games starts to boom, quote unquote, then you would potentially have a section for that, where you would have people rating it because they would buy those games. Like take for instance, Leisure Suit Larry. That is a porn game.
Yeah. That's in the Bow Chicka Wow Wow genre,
Yeah.
essentially.
May I name it after you, Robin? Like it'll be the Robin genre.
No. It needs to be the Bow Chicka Wow Wow.
Oh, okay,
I
so
can
it'll be the
spell
Bow
that for
Chicka
you,
Wow
like,
Wow. Yeah,
Bow.
and then no. You can
Yeah.
just type it in the chat. It'll be the Bow Chicka Wow Wow. Yeah,
Wow.
and
There we go.
somewhere deep buried in the code, it will be accredited to you.
And okay, thank you.
I think the Leisure Suit Larry thing is a debate in itself. But I mean, I'm wondering whether you're referring to things like Leisure Suit Larry, or whether you're referring to things like Japanese eroge VNs, or whether you're referring to actual games being developed by the porn industry. And I don't even know if that last thing exists yet.
Well, I personally go to certain sites where there are games being developed by individuals. There are
Yeah, what about porn for Muslims? Just somebody just lifting
No,
the
I
veil
don't
up
even want to
and things like
know.
it's
that.
Hightail.
They just show the face. It's like,
Um,
it's a
God.
this thing,
That was the worst. That was the worst thing I've ever heard in my whole life, and I've seen some pretty bad things, and I just never needed that image in my head ever.
We could go down through a rabbit hole of porn genres you don't want to know about.
No. We're going to continue.
Well, we're
Whoever
gonna
was
stay
talking.
on. We're
Back
gonna
on
stay on
topic.
just titles and
Anything
and not
involving
go into
dwarves.
details. But there are actual game companies that do make and manufacture porn games. Hightail High is the name of one. Hightail High Studios is one of them. They do manufacture it. They do distribute it, and people are always looking for that quality stuff, quote unquote. It actually. I mean, if you had the Bow Chicka Wow Wow section, it would help people, who are that demographic he was talking about, to basically go for games that really, in terms of what is covered, doesn't really have somewhere to be covered because it's taboo, quote unquote.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're going to get into a situation like, theoretically for us, the games are going to be tagged. So if a game is tagged as not safe for work or 18 plus or whatever, then that's going to be behind its own tag. And if you are the type of person that is of a sensitive disposition, let's put it kindly, you will be able to like go into your profile, and there'll be a setting where you can check a box so you don't see that if it bothers you so much. And that's about it. I'm not into this whole parental controls type thing. I think it's basically it's nonsense. So
Let me kind of expand on that. If you ever go onto like a Steam game, even while you're logged in, there's always that 18 plus wall that's there. Not saying that wouldn't technically be there, because I think there's legal things that are with that. But if you put into your profile that you're 18 years old, then the system should automatically allow you to go through that 18 plus wall without having to verify or say yes, I'm 18. Steam doesn't even do this for some reason. I'm not even sure why. It has my birthday, but it still asks me why for it. So that's one thing I've always thought about.
I believe there's an actual law on there's a law on record which requires you to ask for people's age before looking at certain content, because they might not want to look at it otherwise.
Hold on, I'll get the legal document that you guys will want to review through, because every website will need to at least go through this. As someone who is currently making my own website and doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, here's the full legal free law. Basically, just look through here. We'll see what applies. Put it in terms of service, terms of use, and just know those parts that you put in your use agreement.
Little side note there for you guys. Op Game It Forward's just gone live, so you might want to have a look at that one.
Has
Robin, don't
anyone
promote
not
our-
been nominated in this for a game?
I should hope not.
Oh, you mean in sites? Like this?
No, nominated for a free game, mate.
Oh, sorry.
You
Oh,
haven't.
I've already been nominated and I've already won a free game. So
Congratulations. What did you pick, mate?
I picked Hotline Miami.
Sweet.
What about
Yeah.
you, Dry Bones?
I think I picked I forgot what it's called. It's an Origin game. I'm actually kind of pissed off that it's Origin, but it seems like a really cool game.
Everybody is. It's like, oh yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's a
Robin,
real-time strategy game.
Yeah.
So I want to get into it, see what it's like.
So Robin, since you're here, do you want to cover your project as well?
Well, if nobody has heard of me, how dare you? We are a carbon-based gaming radio. You must know me from the open house by now. Once again, if not, why not? Steve Tom Sawyer was a gentleman that I met near the sort of like beginning of the whole GamerGate scenario, and we've sort of been working together. He used to do Radio Nero with Milo, and then after that sort of collapsed due to some sort of hissy fit. I'm not going to go into details. He basically was in a bit of a pickle. And so we've basically been working together to get the whole thing up and running. We have just finished doing the second episode. I've just had it handed to me via Dropbox. So that should be up and running in probably the next half an hour or so. It's looking pretty good for us at the moment. We've just made, obviously, gone through our target for the Indiegogo campaign. There's about 3 more days left to go. We're still trying to squeeze the 60-minute version out of everybody. If we can get up to 6K, that'd be lovely. We're coming up to about 4K, so it's all to play for. We do have the content available for everybody. We just don't want to eke it out over many, many, many weeks when we could really sort of squeeze that in there and then get on with doing some decent reviews and sort of like going through sort of indie people. What we're really looking to do is try and branch it out into other ideas as well. Looking at Twitch streams, looking at Hitbox, all that sort of thing. So at the moment, obviously, we're just starting with the radio broadcast, and that will keep us going up until Christmas. But after that, into the new year, we'll be looking to basically have new indie developers, people like that on our review board. We've just recently interviewed the guys from Hatred, so that's going to be quite a decent interview for everybody to hand out. But we've also had a lot of people from like the guy from IGN. What was his name again? I'm just trying to remember, as he says, looking around for his notes. Where did I put the notes? Yeah, what was his name? Well, we had Janelle Bernardo from The Escapist. We had the producer Brad Carney, who made Rack. That's sort of like Brad Carney was one of the people that was instrumental in Doom. He's basically made his own version, well, a Doom-alike as such. That's sort of like a quite sort of cel-shaded sort of a game. It's very old school. He's put himself within particular sort of parameters, making sure that he doesn't sort of overdo it. So he's going right down to the sort of base level of the gaming. So it's all about really the game rather than sort of like he's tried to shy away from story-driven gaming and actually getting it back into sort of like more fun, arcadey type stuff. But we had a huge interview with Sean Allen, who was the community manager for IGN. He's got huge amounts of things to say about pretty much everything. He's one of those sort of people that if you met him in a cafe, everyone would just be sitting quiet listening to him speak while he just sits there kind of going, does anybody want to chime in at some point? Go, no, you carry on, Sean. So he's just got so much to say. So we've tried to sort of eke him out into 2 sections of carbon-based gaming. It's all going good. Obviously with Steve sort of having a little bit of trouble with his homing situation, it's we're sort of working on the fly, but we're adaptable. We can make it. I've heard you guys sort of like talking about sort of third-party people coming in and sort of trying to ruin the site in many ways, or doing that sort of thing. The one thing for
Before you go on, Robin, I just like to point out that Darian has returned and he can answer questions again about
yeah,
his
Well,
website,
I do
logistics.
have, yeah, I do have the question that I proposed earlier, which was if you were to put ads on it, and Darian has been asked this question before, but I would like him to respond while he's on, live air hangout. Darian, could you interlay how you would choose ads, or if you were to choose ads, and what type of ads you wouldn't allow for, say, conflicts of interest or anything like that for your own website?
Uh, right. Um, I'm sorry again, guys. I'm sorry to bail on the live stream, but as far as like ads, what I would do instead of submitting myself to AdSense, which you really don't have that much control. You have some control, but not that much control over what they're putting out. I would allow ad buy-ins. In other words, a company could reach out to potentially that is if I was to continue to run the site, but as we discussed earlier, I don't have an interest in that. I would allow ad buy-ins. Where literally any company, don't matter which company, could buy an ad. But as far as like, oh, we're about to launch a game, so we want you to kind of put our ads here and do that. No, I wouldn't allow that. They would be on the same format as any other company, and there would be no special privileges permitted.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good.
Yeah, so it gives us a perspective on the type of people who will be running these. The reason why I asked this question the specific way was to basically give a perspective on these individuals and how they would choose how to run their business. They were hesitant to even start the whole ad thing because they find it annoying, and they also understand that consumers find it annoying. But they did say, like they gave examples that they would make sure that it wasn't something that had conflicts of interest with their ads chosen.
a lot of it is necessary evil, though, isn't it, when it comes to advertisements? So it's difficult for everybody.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. Like realistically, it depends on what kind of site you're running. But again, if you're talking about a review site, running, like they said, an ad about a game on the review that you're talking about would be, they, especially on a negative review, would be kind of dubious, as it were, and seem as something as if they're paying you, so you're gonna do whatever they want instead of appealing to your audience. But again, you could still make money without lowering yourself. I mean, actually keeping yourself at a high standpoint does prevent the manipulation of your company. As well as, basically the stuff that's been going on in the journalism has been happening because they had their ethics broken. They had their ethics lowered. And because just a gradual progression of that happening, you ended up where it ended up just being complete open season on whatever they wanted to do.
It became a norm.
Exactly. And with the beginning establishments of what type of ads you would run and that kind of stuff, how you would do it, that does establish where you would start from. Even if you weren't going to do it, it just established for the people watching, and sort of gives them a perspective on the people who would be running these sort of sites. Even though Darian doesn't want to run his site, which I will have to figure out who the hell he's going to give it to, or somebody who's going to be a candidate for him. I'm pretty sure he can find someone, but yeah.
I could suggest, guys, that if you were to ask for, you're running adverts for anyone in a personal level, is that that you ask them to run it on more than just, a particular week or whatever like that when they're on release. You can imagine that just as you're about to do your review, somebody comes in and kind of goes, "Oh, can we buy some advertising space?" And you say, "Yeah, you can buy it for a month." And they're like, "Well, we only really wanted it for a week," and said, "We only do it at a monthly basis, I'm afraid."
Mm-hmm.
And that
Well,
basically,
Robin, I thought you were going to ask if you could advertise for a carbon-based radio at this point.
Oh, well, I'm always advertising for carbon-based radio. I'm surprised you're not sick to death of hearing of it.
Well, actually, I was going to do something once I got some money for some of the projects, including carbon-based radio. Though, if somebody has some money to help contribute to that fund, it would be perfectly fine. Base Tyrone is who I would consult on trying to make a video. But I will need scripts from each of the person that I would be helping to promote.
On that note, Darian does have to go, so
yeah, go ahead and go.
There is one last question I have for him, and it's about the name Solution 6. Is that name tentative? And why did you pick Solution 6, considering that it was a hashtag that was started mostly to make fun of like tinfoil?
Well, I picked it because I was actually sitting in chat when on that live stream, not in the live stream, but on chat when that was actually brought up. And when I was asked to write a scope, I was like, "What am I going to name it?" Because at the time I didn't even have a name for the project, and it stuck with me. So I decided just to write it because they're like, "Oh, it's a joke, and we're making tinfoil hat people," and I'm like, "Yeah, you know." It worked. It gets stuck with me.
I managed to get that.
Yeah, lots of beeps on my end.
Wait, hang on. All right.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead. Just say what you said.
I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I've seriously got to fix my wireless connection. More or less, I was sitting in the chat on the live stream that came up with that, and I understood it to be a joke, and when I went and actually named it, because I was asked to write it out, the document, I didn't know what to call the project at the time because I didn't even think that far ahead. That wasn't a concern, so it was something I found funny when they were talking about it, and it kind of stuck with me.
There is truly someone who was responding, "Don't adopt Solution 6 for profit." This guy doesn't even want to run the site. Like, he's trying to hand it off to someone. So
Sorry, can I just ask a question? What live stream are you referring to when you say the live stream that created Solution 6?
To be honest, I stumbled upon it, and I have not seen it pop up since. But they were talking about it initially because they were talking about like Solution 5, 6. Oh, don't talk about Solution 7 because you couldn't handle it, stuff like that.
it should be in your. If it was on YouTube, it would be in your YouTube, history. But yeah.
Yeah, I can dig around for it if you really want a definitive answer later.
That'll be fine, as long whoever really wants it, you could just tweet it out on YouTube, on Twitter. People could figure out. But yeah, it doesn't. There is a profit that most people have to make with stuff. Like companies, they do have to make a profit. If someone makes a profit, it's because, and hopefully it's because of the character of how they did it, not just because they were shilling out everything and all the web pages space for ads and stuff like that. Especially with Darian's website, considering he wants to pass it on to someone else.
Yeah, I don't want to pass mine on to anybody else.
We're hoping you don't, because I'm trying to get an ad space for you running for Tyrone.
Sweet.
Big man Tyrone. But I will need you to compile a script you want him to read, and I will get you his pay list, which means based on how many words determines how much you got to pay, or I got to pay.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what we can do here. I'll have a word with Steve about it. See what comes up.
I'm saying you have to make a script. I'm gonna pay.
Oh, boom! Bless your heart, mate. I mean, it's really, we're getting down to about 3 days now, so I'm thinking you may be wasting your time there. That's all. By the time a lot of people see it, you see it may be just a bit too late for the Indiegogo campaign. We're now down to about 3 days. That's all.
Well,
I don't want you to waste your money. That's all.
No, you
Oh,
still
but
need
yeah,
the clicks and all that kind of stuff. So you still need to get traffic to your site in order to get the advertisers.
yeah,
Otherwise,
that would certainly be a better option for it. And I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it before, please go and have a look at episode 1 before you go on to episode 2, because these are sort of sequential. So it's always good to have a look at. We are on SoundCloud, so just pop yourselves in there. And as far
Okay.
as sort of advertisers and things like that for carbon-based gaming,
While we still have Darian
oh,
here, there is another question that I do want to ask everybody. Um, in what ways do you find your projects and websites different from the others that were mentioned here, based on the discussion we had?
or as it currently stands in sort of like what's already there. How do you feel yours is different from what's already exists?
shall I go first on that one? Might as well. Well, for us, more than anything else, we are really targeting. Well, nobody else has said anything. What the hell? You know.
Well, if
Sorry,
Darian
I
has
was
to
on
go
mute.
soon,
Sorry, I totally was on mute. I was actually going to kick it to Darian because he was the one who needs to go.
Oh, I thought he'd already gone.
I-
Oh, he is.
no, he's still here.
Yeah, yeah.
Darian,
Go on, Daria, go for it, mate.
tell him he's muted.
Yeah, you're still muted. Vila Carbon Base.
There he is.
No, here he comes.
The difference in that my project brings is the fact that I'm not worried about anybody else and how they feel as far as like other websites and what their content and their users, because that's what seems to be a trend, is to pull data from all these other unrelevant sources, and I don't agree with that. So that's the main differentiator with my project.
All right, go ahead and go, Robin. If you have to go, Darian, just leave. It'll be fine.
Well, carbon-based gaming radio, the real difference more than most sort of gaming sites is that we are actually targeting a slightly older age group, at least when it comes to the conversation about the games. We're not basically just sitting there throwing pies at each other and then laughing about it and kind of going, hey, look, games. We're actually having proper discussions about it. I think a lot of the times that you see in a lot of websites out there nowadays is that they don't really boil it down to anything. That they're just really, I think a lot of the times, as I've seen this over the years, is that the actual gaming bit side of it, talk about the games is almost secondary. People are too busy wearing a silly hat on and just sort of showing off than actually getting on with the with an actual serious grown-up debate about it. So that's really where we're going with it more than anything else. It's something for you to actually listen to and think, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. That's where we're trying to aim it, not really just basically just loads of sort of fluff and gibberish. So we're sort of trying to get rid of all of that. I'm not saying that all of the websites out there are just fluff and gibberish, but every time I look, that's all I can see. So it's really about sort of well, you'll see with episode 2, we're having quite a long discussion about how the game Hatred has come across, or at least will come across to the wider audience when it's released, and really going through the sort of topics of depending on content, but also context within that content. If you see what I mean, you'll see what it is when you go and listen to it. It should be up very, very soon. Just hanging in there waiting for it to actually happen, because it should be any minute now. But as you can imagine, there's plenty to discuss around games and gaming culture and things like that, but a lot of people miss talking about the actual games. They're too busy talking about what's hot and what's not, and instead of actually concentrating on the games themselves, That's what we're trying to bring. We're trying to bring it back a little bit to getting the discussion onto what it's actually about, more than anything else.
Well, okay, so go ahead and go. Pretty much everyone else. Anyone else who wants to go first?
I kind of zoned out while you were asking the question. Would you mind repeating it?
Sure. How do you feel your product is different than either what's on the market or than anyone else that's currently in this room as well?
Marner, we can go last after Laurel.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
I don't
Or,
think that I do not think within the room itself, I have any competition. We are all doing very different things that can also work together in some way, shape, or form. So that doesn't bother me at all. Outside of this room and this conversation,
Oh,
jeez.
that's a lot of airtime, isn't it?
Yeah, you went for the bucket and you missed.
I
All
totally did.
that
Go on,
air.
though. It's all right.
Was that
Oh.
tumbleweed going past?
What, John? What was or I'm not sorry, John Lavoom.
How do you feel your product is different than what's currently available for the consumer?
Well, currently available sucks. I mean, who in this room doesn't believe that currently available doesn't just completely suck? Currently available right now, we've been dealing with bad journalists and bad critics. Like, we don't need just one specific way to deal with them. We need kind of a bunch of ways to deal with them. And they don't, they are the ones who aren't telling the accurate truth. They are telling the version of the truth that they want, that reaffirms their ideals. Like, let's not be like that. Let's just allow everybody to have an equal say in some way, shape, or form, and at least have people feel like they're a part of it again, instead of getting told what they think on a consistent basis. So that's the philosophy behind my company. Like, that is the one thing that in some way, shape, or form over the last year and a half, that is all I want to do. Like, if I can survive and pay my bills on it, that's going to be fantastic. If I can't, I'll work another job. Like, I still want to do this. This is important to me. Like, this is a big deal. So, you know, for some of the details and also like the overall picture, like, it's going to change and evolve over time. I'm still going to be doing this. This is what I'm going to do. And if people want to use it, that's going to be fantastic. And that's what I want. I want people to utilize something other than just try new things. Try, you know, just try doing it from a different perspective, where you're actually being part of, like, rating the tweets. You're reading them yourselves. You see what other people are seeing. You'll see a small fraction of what the overall thing is seeing.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing this website. Next, I'd like to hear from Drybones and Molar in response to the questions. The first one being, how does your idea separate from the others in the room, and how does your idea separate from what's currently already available?
I have my own thoughts to add to this, and I want to let Marta speak first.
Okay, sure. For me, the answer to the answer to both of those questions is the same thing, essentially. I don't really see particular competitors. I'm not trying or aiming to usurp a specific site in some way. I'm trying to, like, ideally, I'm envisaging a service that is unique in itself, and the market will determine the value of that service in relation to other services, irrespective of what my opinions are. So basically, you know, with games journalism currently, you've gotten into a position where they're really trying to guard their own subjectivity, and you know, I'm sorry to break it to them, but you know, if you're putting yourself into a position where, as a reviewer, you are supposed to inform your audience, and you are providing a service to your audience, you are not supposed to belittle your audience or berate your audience or talk down to them. And there's a level of empathy which is lacking from the journalists to their audience, which they are demanding in exchange that their audience empathize with them when they aren't sharing that empathy back to their users. So the system that I'd like to ideally construct is one where subjectivity of the users is guarded, but objectivity of the critics is also guarded. So if you want to create a review as a user, you will not be constrained by things like arbitrary categorization of, giving rankings out of 10 to things like graphics, gameplay, etc., and that the content of your review will sort of be evaluated on its own merits as best as we possibly can make it. Whereas on the flip side, when we're dealing with the reception and rating of reviews from journalists, that is going to be uh, rated by the users themselves in a way that obviously will reflect the level of objectivity that is wanted by gamers of their reviewers. And I think that's a unique service in itself. I don't think anyone's offering that at the moment.
So clarify that you don't believe that you're in direct competition with the other ideas in the room or with other media sites in general. You believe you're offering a new service that people can use in addition to what they already use.
Well, my concern is for creating and offering a new service. Whether that makes me in competition with someone is not my concern. It's irrelevant to me. I'm just trying to make the best system that I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Which is good. Yes, we should all strive for the best we can possibly offer the consumer base, the best quality that we can offer them. It's not costly. It's weird.
On that note, about what's best interest for the consumer, starting with Laurel, then Drybones and Moltar, and Darian, if he's still here. What reception do you anticipate from your projects? Like once word gets out and people are aware, what are you anticipating for the public from the public?
I would like those who are interested in trying it out. As soon as I end up going, as soon as I end up starting, like I want people just to try it out. Some people are going to use my system, some people aren't, and that's not like a reflection on anything other than individuals are different. So, I just want them to give it a shot, check it out, try it when it goes beta testing round 2, and see what they think and see what comes of it. And if there's something good that comes of it, then awesome. So.
All right. Darian next. Mute your mic, please, Darian. Come on.
I don't want to, but I'll go ahead.
Sorry. You don't have to answer the question if you don't want to. Didn't mean to put you on the spot like that.
No. I can answer it. No, you're fine. I was just kidding. About the reception, what kind of reception I expect. Realistically, if I could get one person on the site and they use it, I would be happy. I'm not looking to win a popularity contest. As I stated, I'm doing this for a personal challenge because it's the type of website I have not worked on. So that in itself is my reward. But as far as the reception, if it's used, awesome. If it's not, it's kind of sad. But yeah, that's my standpoint.
All right, and Drybones and Moltar next.
Let me go first. I don't know if Marta wants to hit on anything I miss, but I kind of aim to kind of create like a community-made projects and try to make them, Marty, shut up. You might.
Oh, sorry.
So my vision for this is to hopefully be like a large project, something that we have plans on creating a large infrastructure to handle large amounts of traffic, bigger than what I have now, in terms of handling and professional setup. I'm kind of tying that in with some other projects, uh, but we're hoping for like the best here. We're not going to be starting out on that kind of infrastructure, but we're hoping that this becomes kind of like a replacement site, that this kind of becomes the place that people, when they think about looking for a review, this is where they start going to in terms of an aggregation site. Um, we're trying to. Oh, I think you kind of skipped over me when I told you to go to Martyr first in the last question.
Yeah, I
But
talk a lot. Sorry.
we're starting the website from complete scratch. We're not using any kind of pre-made content system. We're bringing in developers to make our own system, because there's a lot of things that we want to make a polished site, and we can't really do that on the existing system. I think people will be excited because it's a community main project. People, when the community is involved, then people kind of get excited. They're friends, and it's people they know. They can see how the project's progressing, and they can kind of influence how it moves. 8chan is open in a way. People are excited with contributing and helping with that, compared to 4chan, where Moot is like the only one who's really working on that with some hidden people. Um, so because of it, it's a community-made project and organization. People can contribute to how they feel about the site. It's not just, oh, I don't like this thing, I'll just submit an email to it. There's groups of people that are contributing to the project, and I think that's one of the biggest difference this site is in terms of the development compared to some of the other ones, is that it's completely community made. I always look at every single suggestion, and all those people, as soon as we set up the development infrastructure, can start inputting those ideas, and then start actually putting in the code for the website themselves, as suggestions in commits. So, I think Marta might have something to say.
No, it's fine. I have nothing to add. I mean, like, obviously, you just hope for the best response that you can possibly get, and that's it. You just do the best job that you can, and you hope that you get noticed. Apart from that, I don't think it's really worth speculating otherwise.
Okay. On that note, does anyone? What are your closing thoughts from each of you? Starting with Laurel, Darian, and then Dry Bones, then Moltar. Or anyone can jump in if they want.
Darn it, I was on
guys.
mute. I was on mute, I'm sorry. My closing thoughts would be, like, this is, like, right now we're kind of working in a community base. Like, there's a lot of us having very, very different ideas. And they're all good ideas, and they all target different things. Like, this is what we want. We want a community type space to come together and have these conversations about our different ideas. So, whatever comes of it, who knows? Like, I wish all of you the best of luck, because they all sound like amazing projects in their own right. But let's see what comes of conversations like these that we don't get to have in other places because we're busy having their conversations thrown at us. So let's just continue this going. That's really all I got to say.
Dry Bones or Moltar?
I thought Darren was gonna go.
That's okay. Darian, do you want to go first?
Oh, they can go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Well, um, I
Just
kind of want
thanks
to
for
touch.
having us on, I guess.
I kind of want to touch on how people perceive, their, the start button's announcement. I go on GG a lot, and I see how people, react to things. Um, we're not targeting base gamer in any way. Um, we kind of reacted to it for the announcement. But like I said in the press announce for Start Button is that we reacted it to present our site idea um, to the public. We had been thinking about it for almost a month now, but it's always been casual conversation. We are not targeting Base Gamer or Jenny, and I never talk bad about it at all. Um, so I've seen posts about me on some of the forums and threads. That is not in any way my intention, and nor do I ever say anything against Jenny. So I just wanted to put that out there.
To comment on that note, when it comes to Base Gamer, we do want to have Jenny on the for a show, either sometime this weekend or maybe next week, to discuss more with her about her project in the future. I did invite her today on the open house to come on, but she declined. So we will hopefully see her on the stream in the future.
Well, to be clear, she said to contact her and we'll arrange a time and that kind of stuff. But we will basically want to approach her with constructive criticism and see if we can arrange to basically talk about her idea as a whole, since the majority of us have actually done a lot of research into what it is she's proposing, as well as what it is she offered from her different 5 different attempts, as far as I've seen.
Yeah, like I said, I am in correspondence with her, and I'm hoping that she does get on the show. Darian or Moltar, whoever speaks up first.
I have nothing really to add to what Drybone said. I mean, I'm just
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
that's pretty much.
Okay, Darian.
I'm really happy to see that there are so many projects coming forth, that so many people of the community want to provide different solutions. This ain't limited to just game review sites. There's other projects, such great projects coming out of this. And I'm really happy to see that most projects are welcomed and in getting support. Some are asking for funding, some are not. I'm just excited to see that there's such a inclusive community that is coming together. So I'm really excited about all this.
Yeah, I mean, we are trying to strive for meritocracy here. Whatever the best should flourish, and that seems to be the end goal. But on a last note, since Code USA's, I want to promote his thing. He is gonna teach people how to code. That is something that's useful. If you want to know how to make your own website, different codes, go to his Twitter at Code USA Software. You can see his Indiegogo. He still needs funding for that, but it could help if he gets the funding. You could see the different types of codes you could learn. There are more if you feel free to contact him and find out what those more are. But there is a lot listed there, and you can learn about that. So go check it out, find out about it. The Indiegogo page has a very descriptive detail as far as what it is about.
All right.
So, yeah.
On that note, I think we had a good show. It was nice of all of you to come by, and I thank all of you. I thank all of you for watching, and I like to say that I'm looking forward for all these projects to come forward, and I want the new media to come up and rise above the old media, because we need better websites than we have now. We need better games coverage, and we need better community-oriented sites to promote those games. And we need better avenues for reviews and criticism and community discussion. Because the current outlets, we know the state of right now. We know how bad things have gotten. And while we have made positive strides within the GamerGate, we need to keep going, and we need to learn and advance. And hopefully, things will turn out for the best.
Yes.
And I am looking forward to seeing these new websites.
I'm glad to have you guys here. I did actually like your guys' ideas. They're actually pretty good and fantastic. I want to learn more about Laurel's later, but she has to first come out with projections, stuff like that. But you guys overall are offering a pretty decent product to give to the consumer, and I did learn a good portion from your sites alone as far as the opening statement sites, and that is a good thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. I'm definitely liking the whole transparency and how you say exactly what people are going to get, and if it's not and if the product is not finished, you just state that. So it's nice to have that sort of transparency right off the bat.
Yes, I am one in favor of transparency over well, not always, but I am one in favor of transparency when it comes to new projects that are being in the works, and I do, like I said before, to reiterate, I do look forward to seeing more of them, and I just want to wish everyone have a good night, and say goodbye.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks a lot.
Have a good night.
And thanks to everyone for participating.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for all coming.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.